So this is Angela Mallet. We're going to look at how to sew some masks. So Angela, why don't you go ahead and I'll follow along.
Okay, so these masks are made from rectangles that are 9 inches by 6.5, cut two, one in the front cover, one in the back color. Also cut pieces of elastic that are 14 inches long.
How thick is that elastic?
1/8 inch.
1/8 inch.
So put the right and put the back and the front pieces of the mask together, inside out, with the right side of the fabric together. We're going to start sewing on the top of the mask. That's going to allow us to put in the nose piece. We're also going to start sewing 2 inches from one end. So you can see I've got the top end of the mask on the right hand side, and I'm going to start about just over 1/3 of the way down. I sew close to the end. I turn, I cut the threads. I take my 14-inch piece of elastic. I'm going to cut it in two. So I have two 7-inch pieces. I'm going to then put one end of one piece between the two layers of fabric, and I'm going to sew back and forwards to secure that end of the elastic. Now I'm going to sew down to close to the end of that side. Stop about 1 inch away. Reach inside, grab that piece of elastic that I've secured one end of, and then put that in between the fabric on the other part of the side. Okay. Again, I double stitch over where the elastic is held. So you can see that inside now I have a loop of elastic. Now let me just finish the other sides. Now I've reached the other side. Again, I'm going to take the second piece of elastic, and this time tuck it in between the two fabric pieces. Go back and forwards over it. Sew down to the end. Near the end. Stop about 1 inch. And then again, reach inside to get that other loose end of the elastic. Also, while you're inside, straighten out the elastic, because you don't want it to have any to be kind of twisted inside. So what I do is I reach right for the close to the end and then kind of smooth it out with my fingers so that it has no twists in it. So I put that between the two pieces of fabric, the tail just sticking out beyond, so I know where it is. So back and forth over it. Now I'm back to the top side, the top of the mask. And I'm not going to sew right up to the end. I'm going to leave about 2 inches because that's where the nose piece is going to go. Okay, there we are. Now I'm going to cut the thread. I'm going to tidy up here. I'm going to put a little cut in the corner because I'm going to be folding it the other way out, and I don't want the corners to be stiff. Again, one of my pieces of fabric was a bit large, so I'm cutting some of it off. Now I'm going to turn this inside out. And then I usually use a chopstick to get into the corners as I do this. I'll use a pen here. don't want something sharp, because you don't really want to pull on the elastic, because pulling on this elastic can damage the elastic. Okay, so that's my mask with two ends, two pieces of elastic and a hole in the top between the two pieces of fabric where I'm going to be putting in the nose piece. So the next thing I'm going to do is iron in the pleats. Okay, so now I've got the mask with the right side out. I first iron it, so just to make sure that these seams are not kind of full of fabric. So now it's nice and flat. Now I start putting in the pleats. So the pleats go down. So I'm going to start with this bottom pleat. I'm taking, well, I'll show you how much I take in later. Then I do the top pleat. Now I'm going to pin those with the pins, with the points going towards the seam. Again, I'm putting in 3 pleats. So these are the first 2 pleats. Now I've pinned those in. I've got 1 more pleat to do, so I pick somewhere just above the middle. Put that pleat in, maybe adjust it a bit. So you want your pleats to be as even as possible, just to make it look like a nice mask. Now I iron it again, and iron it on the other side.
How many masks have you made using this technique?
Almost 4,000.
You've given away 4,000, wow.
Yeah, so they're not, you can see they're not completely the same size. It doesn't matter too much at this time, because you will be able to, the sewing will affect it. Okay, so let me just measure how long these seams are. Now, so it's just about 3 inches on either side for 3 pleats. Okay, so that's the ironing part. Okay, so now I've got my mask. It's got 3 pleats going down. It's got the hole in the top for the nose piece. And I'm going to be sewing up one side, down that side, across, up and down, not doing any sewing on the top part for now. Okay. So it's up. Down.
Now, does this help hold the elastic as well?
Yes. Actually, I'm not going to do up, down, up, down. I'm just going to do one seam on the final side. So I've gone up, down, along, and up. Now I take the pins out. And I measure the elastic is the same, about the same position on each side. This one's off a bit, but it's not off too much. If it's off more, then I tend to unpick a seam and correct it so that the seams are about, so the elastic isn't very different on either side. Okay, now I've got the top piece to do. So I'm going to, I have my nose piece here. As you can see, it's a piece of aluminium. I'm going to now put pins in at about the place where I'm going to sew in the elastic. So it's about here, it's
The nose piece.
the nose piece, sorry. So maybe just over 1 3/4 on one side. 1 3/4 on the other side, maybe a bit more than that. Check that the nose piece fits in that pocket. So now I'm going to sew along the top to the pin. I'm going to sew down just a bit wider than the nose piece, along, up, along, and then down that side that I only sewed a single pass, so that it now has a double seam. Okay, so I'm going to sew along part of the top. I get to the pin, I'll take the pin out. I sew down. I sew along. To the other pin. I take that pin out. Sew up. And then I sew down the side that I only sewed a single time. Okay, now I can cut the ends of the threads off. Now you can see I've got a little pocket here that I can put the nose piece into. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the sticky piece off the end, one side of the nose piece. I usually put the sticky side to the back, I'm not sure it matters. I put that in the pocket, centering it. Now I'm going to sew along, just to sew this little pocket closed. Cut the ends off. And maybe tidy up if there's some little pieces that are not, just still kind of ends sticking up. Okay, there we have it. We have a mask with 3 pleats. It opens up, it has a nose piece, so I can bend that and over the nose. And that's how I'm making these masks.